this lesson, we're going to add and subtract complex numbers. Adding complex numbers. Complex numbers. Complex numbers is a combination of a real number and an imaginary number. So if a and b are real numbers, then any number of the form a plus bi is a complex number. In the complex number a plus bi, the number a is the real part of the number and b is the imaginary part. When you are performing operations on complex numbers, meaning adding, subtracting, multiplying, or dividing, you should always get in the habit of writing your answer in standard form. Standard form is a plus bi, where the real part is first and the imaginary part is written second. So let's do some examples that involve complex numbers. So here, just to let you know which part would be considered the real part and which part would be considered the imaginary part. In this number 2 minus 3i, this expression, 2 is considered the real part of it, and anything that has the unit, the imaginary unit I in it, that would be considered the imaginary part of the number. And again, this is called standard form. Now let's do some adding with complex numbers. Very simple. All you have to do is to make sure that you add the real numbers with the real numbers and add the imaginary numbers with the imaginary numbers, and then be sure to write your answer in standard form. So let's go ahead and add this expression that we were given. We're given 6 minus I plus negative 4 plus 9i. So if we add the real with the real, we're combining a positive 6 with a negative 4. And we know that's going to give us a 2. And for the imaginary part, which you should know by now, anytime you have a variable by itself, it is understood to have a coefficient of 1. So with the imaginary part, you are going to be combining a negative 1 with a positive 9, and that's going to give you positive 8i for the like term there. But again, you just have to remember to combine the real with the real and the imaginary with the imaginary, and you write your answer in standard form, starting with the real numbers and then followed by the imaginary numbers. So the final answer here again would be 2 plus 8i. Let's do another example. We want to add these complex numbers. So recall, you're going to add the real numbers together and then add the imaginary numbers together. And then lastly, write your answer in standard form. So for the real part, I'm going to be combining a positive 2 with a positive 4. That's going to give me positive 6. Next, we're going to be combining a negative 3 with a negative 5, and that will give me a coefficient of negative 8, and that's going to be I. So that leaves us with a final answer. Writing it in standard form would be 6 minus 8i. Subtracting complex numbers. Subtracting complex numbers is very similar to adding complex numbers. Recall, you just have to remember anytime you're performing subtraction with terms, because the second group has that negative in front of it, you have to change everyone in that second group to their opposite. So with this second group, instead of this being a positive 15, it's going to become negative 15. And instead of the term becoming being negative 6i, it's going to become plus 6i. And that's all you have to do, is make sure you change those to their opposite. And then from there, it's a matter of just combining like terms. So let's go ahead and do that. We're going to put the real with the real and the imaginary with the imaginary. Notice we have changed the signs of the 15 and the negative 6i. We changed them to their opposite. And now combining the real, we're combining a positive 12 with a negative 15. And that's going to give us a negative 3 because subtract, take the sign from the larger number. For the imaginary numbers, one sign again is negative, one's positive. So subtract, take the sign from the larger number, and that's going to give me 3i. So writing your answer in standard form, your answer would be negative 3 plus 3i. Last example here, we want to subtract these complex numbers. So we need to make sure we change the sign of that second group. The positive 3 is going to become negative 3. The negative 5i is going to become plus 5i. Then go ahead and proceed with combining like terms so that you can write your answer in standard form, starting with the real numbers followed by the imaginary numbers. So what do you think the answer is? Okay, so when you subtract both groups, what you should wind up having is 4 plus I. Now, yes, you can write a 1 in front of the I, but you know it is customary to just leave the 1 off when you have variables. We normally do not put a 1 in front of the variables, but if you have it there, it's not wrong at all. In fact, I think when you do your homework in my math lab, it should accept whether you put the 1 or not, it will accept it. And so there you have it, subtracting complex numbers.